awesome news for the Trailblazers organization, for the city of Portland, for the Pacific Northwest. It's a happy day. I had a former Trailblazer text me right after the news broke. He said, everything's right in the NBA again. And I just smiled and nodded, and it was like, yeah, I mean, it is. It never felt right seeing Damian in a different jersey, and, you know, we're really excited, of course, to bring him back to Portland and put him in that red and black. So, you know, we'll get into a few opening statements and answer any questions you have, but just really thankful to Dame for trusting in us, for believing in us, and for coming back. So send it over to Chauncey.
Yeah, same thing for me, really. This is a happy day for all of us. Really, really excited to have Dame back. You know, it's been a process. I think if we're all being honest, we obviously never wanted to see him go. And even when he did, we all wanted to see him back. So it worked out perfect. I always just believe that things happen how they're supposed to. And unfortunately, he's hurt right now, and he'll be back as good as ever, you know, if you know anything about him. So we're really excited about that. I told him that this year he's going to be the highest paid assistant coach in league history because I'm going to be putting him to work every day. So we're really excited. We're really happy to have our guy back. Go ahead, Tyler.
For me, personally, well, first I want to thank Joe, and I want to thank Chauncey because, you know, obviously for this to even be possible, we all had to be on the same page about it. But like they both said, it never felt right not being home, and you know, through it all, I found my way back, and just fortunate to be back with the group that I was with prior to leaving, to be a part of a great situation at home. And I'm just excited, you know, and really, really thankful and appreciative of the door being open for me to come back, even with me being hurt. And, you know, it means a lot to me to not only play for this organization again, I never wanted to not be playing for this organization, but to be back in this community, you know, that I'm most familiar with, the familiar faces, all of the things that I've been connected to, even during the time that I wasn't playing here the last 2 years. So it all just feels right. You know, usually when I have to make a decision, I put a lot of thought into it. I ask a lot of questions to the people around me, but this was a decision that wasn't hard at all for me to make. And, you know, the people that I know love me and care about me, it was a easy piece of advice for them to give. It was easy for them to, you know, to support. So, like I said, I'm just thankful to be back. And it just feels like the perfect situation at the perfect time. So I'm just happy to be back.
Brenna Green, Coin 6 Sports. Damian, if I would have told you 2 years ago you would be sitting here right now doing this press conference, what would have your reaction been?
I probably would have been like, I don't know, you know. That's a little, in just 2 years, I probably wouldn't have believed it. I'd be lying if I said I didn't expect this to happen at some point, but for it to happen this soon, I wasn't expecting this.
For Dame and for Joe, Mike Richmond, can you talk about the process of kind of how this came together? When did you guys start talking about it? What did sort of the conversations look like and the meetings look like that led to this happening?
Once we learned Dame was leaving the Bucks, you know, it all happened pretty smooth and organically. Chauncey and I sat down with him a few times and had some really good conversations. You know, a lot of, you know, talking about goals and, you know, what the Trailblazers are trying to accomplish, what he's trying to accomplish, and seeing if those, you know, goals aligned. And I think we knew very early on that those goals were very similar, and the key thing there was just work out a deal and let's get this done, and it was really that smooth.
Lindsay Schnell, The Athletic. Dame, I'm curious, can you tell us how you told your kids that you were coming home, and what their reaction is? I'm guessing Dame Jr. is old enough to like really get it. The twins might have been a little confused.
They're all old enough to pick up on it now, especially Dame Jr. But I didn't say nothing to him about it until Saturday when I actually signed, and they were with me, and we got back in the car to go home. And I got to a red light, and I just turned around, and my daughter was looking at me, and I told her, and she was like, "Wait, so like we don't have to get on the airplane to Milwaukee no more?" I was like, "Yeah, like y'all don't gotta get on the plane no more." And she was like, "So you're gonna be at your house in Portland the whole time?" I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "What?" Like she was, and then her brothers was kind of listening to that back and forth, and they were all extremely excited. So I saved it for when I knew it was official.
With the Oregonian. Dame, what expectation are you setting for yourself after this year of rehab? What kind of player do you expect to be in 2026?
I mean, I think it's obviously a tough injury, but me personally, I know how I'm going to approach the whole rehab process, taking my time. A lot of trust in the people around me, a lot of trust in the surgeon that I went to. We've stayed connected. And I think I'm going to return to form. That's just my true belief. I think I'll return to form. I think with this injury, a lot of the people that I've spoke to that have experienced the injury and come back for it, a lot of the surgeons that I spoke to, a lot of the PTs that I've spoken to have shared a lot of information with me. And a lot of it was encouraging for me. And I know what my assignment is to make that happen. And that's what I've been focused on doing. So it's a pretty slow process. That's why I'm taking the next season to make sure that I check every box and that I don't rush, especially at my age. But I expect to return to form.
I can Rose Garden Report. This would be for, I guess, both Joe and Dame. Is there any possibility at all that Dame plays this upcoming season, or is it understanding that this is just a rehab year?
We're going to do what's best for Dame. And, never say never in this world, but all that matters is him coming back to form. And that'll take as long as it takes, and we won't go a second faster than that.
My prideful self would be thinking differently, but I think that with age you get wiser, and like Joe said, it's going to be, ultimately what's best, and I think to take as much time as possible to make sure that I'm right, that's what I'll do.
Dan Carey-Eggers, so assuming you don't play this next season, what will your role be? What will you do as far as the team on hands and that sort of thing? And then what role do you expect to play when you do get back?
I think not playing, just wanting to still have an impact on the team and still be present with the team. I think when you've been around the league for as long as I have, and you've had as much experience as I've had on the floor every day in practice, just being in this league and having a significant role, it's a lot to share. It's a lot that you need time to learn in the NBA. A lot of things you just learn over your amount of time, and with this being a younger team, it's a lot of things that I can share, without having to be on the floor. And I think that'll be my main job this year. Like Chauncey said, I'm basically going to be like an assistant coach. So I'll be around, and my investment in the team will be the same as if I was playing, as far as like my time and where my energy is placed. And I think once I'm playing, it'll be the same. One thing that I've missed over the last 2 years playing on an older team is I'm able to be more and give more when I have something to pour into. When I'm able to be invested in others' careers more, being around younger players. So with this team, I'll have plenty of opportunity to do that, especially having a young rising point guard like Scoot that I'm gonna be, playing with now, and Tumani and Denny and Shaden, who I was with his rookie year. So just being around those guys and having so much to share and being able to pour into them and be a part of, their continued progress is something that elevates me as a player and as a teammate and as a leader. So, I'm looking forward to that as well, even when I'm playing.
Danny Meringue, 105.1 The Fan. In your previous tenure, you were a flag bearer not only for the team, but the city, the organization, all of it. Just kind of what are your thoughts on being that right now as the team's up for sale, and Adam Silver's comments about the preference of staying in Portland, it's the pride and thoughts that you've had of being that guy and being that guy again?
The city of Portland and the Trailblazers as an organization is just important to me. It's never been something that I've had to try and go out and do, and make myself something. It's just how I feel, and I go off of, what my true feelings are. So it was always genuine for the first 11 years of my career, and it was also always organic. I never had to go out of my way to do something or make something appear to be a certain way, and I think this will be the same. I don't need to try to announce myself as that or anything. I just operate as myself, and that's always been good enough. And I think, especially at this stage of my career, I think it'll remain the same.
Casey Holdall, Trailblazers.com. Dame and Chauncey. Dame, could you speak? You did this now, but could you speak a little more about kind of your thoughts on the team as currently constructed, particularly how it's maybe different from the team that you were on your last season here? And Chauncey, I know it's probably kind of early, but have you thought at all about how you're going to use Dame once he is able to get back out there?
Should I go first?
Why don't you go first, Dame?
I think one thing that when we all sat down and this idea kind of started to move towards me signing back here, obviously I'm gonna look at the basketball situation. We play basketball, and you want to win basketball games. So a lot of people, may look at it as a family decision, and obviously anybody would have their family be a part of a decision that they make, but this was just as much a basketball decision. I've watched the team even at a distance. I've followed and stayed in touch with what was going on, and looking at how the league is transitioning and how it's changing. It's not the same old thing no more. It's young teams that guard and that have depth and that compete, that are connected, and this team has all of those things. Maybe because it's Portland, people may not be willing to say it, but it's all there. From the talent to the depth to having it on both sides of the ball, it's all there, and that's something that I believed in when I looked into a decision like this. So the personal part, the family, the basketball, the fact that this opportunity came unexpected, being waived, it just felt like like I said, it just felt like the perfect timing and the perfect opportunity.
What you asked me again, man? Oh yeah, yeah. That's a long way from now. Obviously, I'm more excited right now to have Dame back, and like he said, just pouring into our young guys. I want to see Scoop and Shaden take a step this year. Of course, I coach these guys very hard, but it's always different when you're getting that mentorship and that tutelage from a guy that wears a jersey. And to have Dame and to have Drew and have these guys pouring into him, I'm really, really excited about that. And then when we get to that point, we get there, but I'm really excited about what we've been able to do this summer and what our team looks like right now. And when Dame is able to come back, we'll be super ready for him, but I'm really not even thinking about a year from now. I'm thinking about this year.
Hey, Damian. Annie Peterson from AP. You said it was also a basketball decision, but how much did being with your kids in the same city factor into your decision? How much did that mean to you?
It meant a lot. I mean, it's my kids, so it only made it that much sweeter. But to that same point, even when I wasn't here, I created a situation where I could still be with my kids as often as possible. So, like I said, that was part of it. It's well documented that I'm a family guy, and when you have kids, that's even more so the case. Once you have kids of your own. So obviously that's a part of that. You know, it makes it that much better, but the same is to be said about, you know, basketball and what I've always wanted to accomplish in a Trailblazer uniform, and now looking at the team and it, in my opinion, being positioned to do, you know, what I've always wanted to have opportunity to do.
Just the Oregonian. My question is mainly for Joe. How do you go through the next 15 months in terms of trying to build this thing, make moves, knowing that Dame's going to be coming online in 2026? And do you feel that sense of, you know, urgency to try and put something together that maybe can make a run when you failed to do that last time?
We're really excited about the steps we've taken so far, and we know we have a really good player coming, you know, a year from now. And I think our challenge this year is to keep getting better and keep prepping to take that next step. And once Dame gets back, he's going to catapult us even further. You know, we're going to keep doing this the way we've done it. We're going to develop our guys. We're going to get better and better. We're going to be opportunistic in trades. We're going to keep recruiting in free agency and, you know, go into next summer with plenty of ammunition to keep getting better. And that's a goal. Like, it's winning time now for the Trailblazers. Chauncey and I have been saying that all year last season, and that's what this is. And, you know, how we go about that, we'll figure it out as we keep taking our steps.
Dame, Nick Krupke from KPTV. We heard about the joy in your kids' faces, but in that stoplight, in that moment, you're not flying back to Milwaukee. As a dad, what was that moment for you to be able to actually tell them and have a relief of, yeah, I'm here, we're here together?
It was a great moment. I think I've never been somebody that just get overly excited, or I don't express myself that way. The inside, it might be a whole lot going on, but on the outside, you might not always be able to see it. But I think in that moment, it was just a great feeling for me, not only just sharing that moment with my kids, but just I'm pulling up to a familiar stoplight, you know, right here at Bridgeport, and I know my way around here. So just knowing that, you know, I'm going to be back home, you know, for all parts of my life, you know, with my kids, playing for the Trailblazers, driving on the same streets that I've driven on pretty much my entire adulthood. My whole family being here, my mom, my brother, my sisters, all my friends around the city of Portland. You know, all of those things count. And like I said, I wasn't expecting it to happen so soon, you know, so the fact that everything worked out the way it did, you know, even though some of it was unfortunate, the fact that it happened and, you know, all of these things was able to come to life, you know, I was real thankful for that. So it was a lot of emotion in that moment for my kids, but for myself as well.
Orlando Sanchez, KGW TV. Dame, there's been a buzz around the city since it became official. What has the feedback been from this fan base, and what does it mean to be embraced the way that you are in the city?
It means a lot. You know, I think it was something that I never wanted to happen to begin with. You know, even once it was like I knew I was being traded, like I don't know if I ever let it go. You know, it was hard to let go, just the love that I have for Portland, you know, the community, the organization, everything. You know, it was a hard time. So I think over the course of my career, all of the fans, you know, everybody throughout the community, I think they've always known that it was like genuine coming from me, you know, by my actions and not by words. So I think when it was announced that I was coming back, I think those were the emotions, you know. It wasn't just about basketball. I think it was everything. And, you know, people just happy and excited to have me back, you know, just as a presence and as a person, you know, representing this city and the organization. And I think that, you know, as a man, I think that means more than anything, you know, when people respect who you are and what you bring to the table on top of who you are as a player. And that's what that, you know, them embracing me that way felt like.
Dame, when you left, at least from my perception, it seemed like you weren't a big fan of Joe Cronin. How did that relationship change? And when did it change? Like, when did it change for you that this is someone you want to play for and work with again?
I think toward the end, I think it was a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunication. And, when something like that comes up, people are hurt. I'm not saying nothing, and then I'm seeing things that were said by me, and now I'm looking at things sideways. So I think more than anything, it was miscommunication and misunderstandings, and Joe and I never sat down and talked about that. It just kind of sat out there, and we let it be what it was, and I think that was the mistake. But I wouldn't say when I left, I just was not a big fan of Joe. Me and Joe had a great relationship, the entire time before he became GM and while he was GM. But I think at that time, it was a hard time, like I was moving on and things were being said, like I said. So it was more a misunderstanding than anything. And the last game that we played here, I went over before the game and I said hello to Joe. I said hello to Jody. And for me, I really wanted them to know that it was, no hard feelings. During that time when it was happening, sometimes when you're emotional, you handle things from a position of protecting yourself and not knowing what's going on, on the other side. And then over time, you calm down and you figure it out. And, I'm not a kid, so, that wasn't hard for me to do. And it honestly wasn't even after that, it wasn't a long conversation to move past that. And I think that was because we never had a bad relationship, or it was never a dislike or us not being a fan of each other, like you said.
Dame, the Achilles can be such a devastating injury, and especially mentally for players. Did you go through the like self-pity, why me phase of that? And how does being back here maybe help with and having the resources that you have by being on the team here too, not just rehabbing here? How is that going to help you through what is, as you've said, an extremely long road ahead?
I mean, I literally, after I tore my Achilles and I felt it, and I was sitting on the floor, I grabbed it and I rolled over and I sat up, and the first thought that I had to myself was like, I'm about to come back from an Achilles. That was literally my first thought, like on my kids. That was the first thing I thought of. And we got to the back, and when the doctor said, you tore your Achilles, like I think everybody else had more pity for me than I did. Like I had the PTs, like, about to cry and all of that stuff. Like I didn't cry. Even when I got by myself, I didn't cry. And it wasn't like a prideful thing. My mind automatically went to like, I got to fight for something. I know it's going to be a long journey. I know it's a challenge mentally, and I kind of shifted right there to what I knew was coming. And then it was, just kind of learning more about it, talking to Aaron Rodgers and KD and Rudy Gay, all these guys that experienced it and handled it differently. But I never had that moment of like pity or any of those things with none of my injuries, honestly. But this one I know is like probably the biggest one of my career. And like you said, it's a mental battle, but if I don't lose those. If it's a mental battle, those battles that I don't lose. If it's physical, it's possible, but a mental battle, I'm just not gonna lose.
Tyre Smith, K2 News. Dame, I got a question. When you left in 2023, there were some of those team members that you kind of were familiar with, and now that you played against them a couple of times, how comfortable does this group make you that when you do return next season, you guys are going to be competing for some hardware?
I mean, just playing against them, but more than anything, watching them. I was able to watch a lot of games. Like, we played, if I played a 7 o'clock game, by the time I would get home, it would be, the West Coast games coming on. So I caught a lot of the games. And like I said, I watched closely. And, I watch the Trailblazers specifically and I'm always looking like, how do I fit in? That's just my natural way of thinking, because to me, this is like my team. Like, this is who I've always seen myself with. So I watched it with that type of mentality, even if it was to never happen. And I saw how they competed. You know, I saw how they cheered for each other on the bench, you know, regardless of who was finishing the game. How they shared the ball. You know, one game I might see Shea go crazy, and then it might be Ant against us. And then, you know, Denny might have a 5-game stretch where he killing, and I'm just looking like, man, this is one of those teams that's coming along, you know. And like I said before, those same old teams are kind of aging out, and you know, you see OKC just won it this year, and you see Indiana snuck in there and made a run. And then you see like New York, you know, it's a lot of these younger teams, Houston, San Antonio, that's kind of like moving in. And even during the season, you know, I was telling my cousin that lived with me, like, I was putting the Blazers in that same category, you know, even though they're not one of these teams that people want to say it about. Because I watched so many games, I could see what was happening. And, you know, that's how I viewed the team.
Dame, can you just confirm how old your kids are now? I think Dame Jr. is 7 and the twins are almost 4.
Dame Jr. is 7 and the twins are 4. Yeah.
And has Dame Jr., now that you're going to be home full time, I assume he has started playing basketball, asked you if you'll be his coach on the sideline?
I'll be his coach?
Yeah. Now you're home full time. And
I'm not going to be a dad coach. I'm going to just, with my kids, like, I don't put no like pressure on them to try to be a basketball player. I didn't love playing basketball until I was like in the 4th or 5th grade, so it wasn't forced on me. And I made it to the NBA, so I don't force it on him. I just kind of let him find his way as Sonic and dinosaurs and Roblox and all of that stuff, and I let him, you know, I let him find it on his own. My daughter is actually more of a competitor athlete, you know, thinks she can do everything. So I think that's the one that I may end up coaching someday, because that's probably the one. But as of now, I just let them be kids, you know, and that's it.
We are good to go. Appreciate y'all coming.